Yeah, I'm going live now.
I don't understand. Mike.
I see us, dude. I'm not kidding. I see us.
Yay.
Okay, just a second.
I don't see us, but I don't need to see us. I know how ugly I am.
I totally see us.
Thanks
Okay.
for the reminder, Mike.
So do you think, oh, Mike, yeah. Okay, so invalid broadcast status. What do you think is going on now? Totally see us live. I hope that we're embedded in. I'm going to go now, though, because you're live.
All right.
Are you ready?
I mean, I've been ready for the last half hour.
Sweet. I'll figure out how to get it on the website or I'll send people here because I could see us. Okay. I'm out.
Sounds good. Thanks, Andy.
Okay, dude.
All right, guys. So, I mean, there's, when you're the guinea pig, you work through the kinks. As King Hap said, I have a face for radio, but you know what? I thought this would be fun to kind of come to you guys with this new format tonight. And since we're a little bit late, I'm going to cut the jibber jabber. But I do want you guys to know that you've heard this voice for the last year and a half now. Now you're getting to see this pretty face. Chappy, Chaps Fantasy Chat. I come to you Tuesday nights on the Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports Network. With the innovation of all this new technology that's coming about because of the coronavirus, one of the small positive things that's coming out of this, we're trying some new things. So tonight is the initial Chaps Fantasy Chat on video. So I have on my left here, I have Lenny Melnick FantasySports.com chat room hooked up. So if you have questions, that's where you want to go and kind of ask them. We have a great group of folks with us that a lot of great baseball knowledge, a lot of great knowledge in general. But that's where you want to go and ask your questions, do your your soul searching, if you will, for fantasy sports. We are going to play baseball this year, guys. So we should definitely embrace that at this point. We should, it might only be a couple weeks, hopefully not, but it's getting close to that time. They're talking about playing some sports. So tonight, I'm cutting myself 20 minutes short. I'll go over a little bit tonight, but I don't want to go over too much. Trying to stay married. But it's tough when you, and I know I'm not doing a very good job of selling this. I have some really good information I want to share with you guys. Since I got on here late, I definitely want to make sure and get right into it. What are we doing without sports is the big thing, right? So Andy is she drugged me into the Stratomatic League, which Stratomatic is simulated baseball. Basically, you go in and draft a team, and it's a full team. You manage it as your team throughout the course of the year. You have a salary cap. You have a left-handed rotation lineup that you set, a right-handed rotation lineup that you set. So it's beneficial, believe it or not, to preparation when you're talking about true fantasy sports. So I'm a rookie. I'm not good at Stratomatic. I'm not, I'm more the real type sport guy, but in desperate times, you do what you have to. Did this draft the other night real quickly. I don't want to go too deeply into it, but I do want to talk about strategy, because that's the takeaway when going from a simulated baseball league to actual real baseball, right? It's utilizing, it's optimizing draft capital. So what I did, actually, I was shocked and floored, being a rookie of this. I was able to get Acuna with the first round pick. I turned around and then got Yelich with my second round pick. So I thought there was a lot of great value there. And then after that, I focused on defense. I picked up, obviously you want to focus on pitching early, so I picked up Strasburg, I picked up Paddock, but then I turned around and picked up Olson, I picked up Chapman. So we'll see how it goes. The takeaways from Stratomatic before we get into real baseball is discipline. Paying attention to your lineup every day, changing it religiously, and paying attention to the stats, right? Basically trending, watching trending. So I'll check in periodically as the year goes on with the Stratomatic League. I'm not going to bore you with all my players, but I do think it's important to know the strategy is definitely a correlation. You can definitely take that into account when you're drafting. If you have a league that hasn't drafted yet, strategy is a big part of it, right? So it's interesting, and we're all kind of doing things that we wouldn't normally do, things to pass the time, if you will. That's one of the things I'm doing. So let's talk about, and I love this topic because this is really what we're all trying to do as fantasy baseball players, fantasy football players as well. It doesn't matter the sport. You're trying to find that hidden gem. You're trying to find that guy that people didn't realize was being underdrafted, right? Was being undervalued. And tonight I'm going to talk about a handful of players that I feel are really on this cusp of stardom that aren't being discussed enough when we're drafting our leagues, when we're building our teams. Okay. And this is the fun part, right? Because some of these guys, you're like, what the fuck are you talking about, Chappy? Dylan Cease had a 5.49 ERA last year. There's reasons why you like these guys, right? There's reasons why you maybe want to roll the dice and take a chance on them. So I'm going to give you 8 to 10 players here that I really feel are in line for that oh crap moment where you're like, yeah, I remember he was a good prospect, and then we kind of just forgot about him, right? So what this list won't include, it won't include guys that you guys know that I already like for the most part. You're not going to hear me talk about Matt Olson. You're not going to hear me talk about Matt Chapman. You're not going to hear me talk about Javi Baez. You're not going to hear me talk about Jordan Alvarez. You guys have seen me. You all already know that I like those guys. This is an opportunity. This is a hard pause. This is an opportunity for us to discuss guys that we just aren't afforded the time during the course of the season, because once the first pitch is thrown, it's an onslaught for the next 8 months. Who are we talking about? And by the way, before I jump into these guys, isn't it weird? It was 78 degrees here in Indianapolis today. And it just felt weird driving past the Indianapolis Indians Stadium, the Pirates Chipway affiliate, as I do every day to and from work, and there's nothing going on. There's no sports. There's no baseball. There's no hope of baseball right now. It is so strange, especially now that it's starting to get super warm, that there isn't baseball highlights to look at. So we're kind of manufacturing our own information here. But like I said last week, it's important to not get lethargic here, to not rest on our laurels and what we believe is our knowledge, right? Because there's a lot of problem solving going on right now. There's a lot of information that we can gain just by digging a little bit deeper. Guys, let me know on the Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports site that you can hear me. Um, I, 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 I don't mind being the guinea pig. I don't mind the small audience um, because this is innovation. We're starting to do this new, and um, it'll grow, right? But just let me know you can hear me. Let me know everything's going smoothly. I see Andrea on here. I see Susie Chaplin Stoltz. Speaking of a face for radio, no, I love you, sis. Thank you for joining by. It's fun to do this. It's kind of a way to kill the boredom, but it's also a way to activate your mind, to talk about things that you normally simulate real life, right? Tonight's whiskey of choice, Russell's Reserve. Russell's Reserve is, first off, it's almost gone, but it's a George Dickel top shelf. It's really tasty, obviously, but it's one of my better whiskeys. So let's talk about players. Let's talk about these guys that are on the cusp of stardom, because that's exciting to me, right? The first guy I want to, yeah, it is good, Stoltzy. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it. The first guy I want to talk about is Julio Urias. I love saying that name, but also here's a guy who I really feel like isn't getting enough credit. Everybody just kind of went wild over this guy when he first came up as a 19-year-old in the Dodgers rotation in 2016. That's right, a 19-year-old starting games for the heralded Dodgers. And you know what? He held his own. He went 5-2. He had a 3.39 ERA. WHIP was a little high, 1.45. But he looked the part, right? As a kid. I remember it looked like he didn't fit in those glasses when he came up. It was entertaining watching. But he had TJS. Last year he came back, pitched the complete year healthy. Really reestablished himself as that young prospect that he once was. He went 4-3, a 2.49 ERA. He was a spot starter because they were trying to limit his innings a little bit. But he didn't manage almost 80 innings, 79.2 innings. Like I said, his ERA is respectable. It's a 2.49. The thing I like about Urias is he has great stuff. I really look for him. So the big thing about this is being afforded opportunity. He's definitely afforded opportunity. They've announced that he's going to be in the rotation. 3 or 4, depending on David Price, really. I mean, that's what it comes down to. But I look for them this year to bump that 79 innings up to about 120. Again, in a vacuum, I understand. But again, as Lenny says in the morning, it doesn't limit him in a shortened season, which is a bonus, right? He could pitch full throttle in a shortened season. So I really like Urias. And again, opportunity being in a spot where he's going to be in the rotation in one of the best offensive lineups in the game. What's not to like about Julio Urias? This time next year, he could be talked about in the same ilk of a Walker Buehler. And that's saying something, right? Because people really like Buehler. And I do too, don't get me wrong. But that's what kind of talent this kid has. So why is he going so late? That's the question. And forgive me, I don't have ADPs. I normally have that stuff. It's funny when you put this face on radio, things have to get sacrificed. No, in all honesty, I like to do that stuff, but I think it's important to adapt to what we're dealing with. So Julio Arias is not going high. Julio Arias is definitely undervalued. If you're drafting tomorrow, theoretically, he's definitely undervalued. The next guy I want to talk about, who I think is totally undervalued, Brandon Lau. Brandon Lau is one of those guys that people forget about, right? People forget. He made the All-Star game last year as a rookie. He's on pace for 34 home runs. Excuse me, 39 home runs on June 15th. He's on pace for 34 home runs when he got hurt. Well, fuck. I think I lost you, but I'm back on. So I'm going to talk some more, hoping people come back on. Whatever. Technology. It's going to happen, right? But let's talk about Brandon Lau a little bit. My buddy George. George, you see me? I don't know why it's Brandon Lau and Nate Lowe. I don't know why he's got to be so freaking difficult. But I'll tell you this much, George. The kid can hit. They brought this guy up. They gave him a major league contract after, I don't have it in front of me, after not very many games in 2018. They gave him a major league contract. So, George, I feel like you're Pinocchio there, buddy. You have potential. Anyway, it's funny because guy got hurt, right? I believe he fouled had a foul ball go off of his leg, or maybe he pulled his quad. He did both of those. I forget which orders. It doesn't matter. The point is, he made the All-Star game as a rookie. He's on pace for 39 homers. He is multi-position eligible. And he's forgotten about, right? People aren't talking about Brandon Lau the way they should be. Here's a guy who, if you really think about it, when he was healthy, was hitting in the middle of the lineup for one of the best teams in the American League. And there's no reason why he won't do it again. When he's healthy, they're going to put him right back in the middle of that lineup. I really think Lau is underappreciated. So, sorry, you guys know I don't multitask very well. I tried to put in ADPs to get you guys some of this information. It went to football. Brandon Lau is a 195 ADP. I think that's, for a guy who, again, I'm not going to keep saying this, but in a vacuum, right? We're not playing a full year, most likely. Was projected out at 39 homers before he got injured. Injuries happen, right? I mean, it's a long season. I think that's a great value. And if Kevin Cash loves him, I love him. The next guy. This is so much fun, right? It's fun because once baseball starts, you're kind of constricted. You kind of have to talk about who's hot, who's not, blah, 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 who hit a homer, who stole a base. Tonight, you can kind of make the shit up as you're going, and you can talk about who you want to talk about. You're going to be right. You're going to be wrong. That's part of it. But if you're thinking about it the right way, you can't be wrong. So I really believe that Brandon Lau's a good value. The next guy, the pitcher. How about Eduardo Rodriguez? Here's a guy. I didn't mention this. Pitchers tend to peak a little bit later than hitters. Hitters peak earlier. Ed Rod's only 27 years old. His last 2 years, he's proven that he's a workhorse. And people forget when he came up as a 22-year-old, who's actually pretty fucking dominant. As a 22-year-old in the American League East, facing the Yankees 16, 17 times a year, facing the Rays 16, 17 times a year, he went 10-6 with a 3.85 ERA. And in all honesty, he looked like the Red Sox ace for the next decade. I'm in a lot of prospect drafts, and it was him and Severino. We love both of those guys. Both of those guys were like the next big thing, right? And I had both of them. Edward struggled for a couple years, and I think that was part of him learning command. But I think it's also part of workload. Because when you're that young, when you're 22, 23, 24 years old, the first thing to go when you're increasing your innings is your command, right? But if you look at his last 2 years, 13-5 and 19-6, 129 innings pitched to 203 innings pitched, 146 Ks to 213 Ks. His whip's not great. And George is calling me out. Hey, it is what it is, brother. I've always liked Ed Rod, and yeah, that's pretty high. It's funny because when you're in this industry and you're I've never played in AL only, so I'd assume with half the players, George, you're probably reducing that ADP. The thing I like about Ed Rod, and again, I don't know if you're helping my point or hurting my point. When you like these guys, you stick your stake in the ground, right? I mean, that's what Lenny says it all the time. I really think that Ed Rod has Cy Young type potential, and he's trending in the right direction. He's 27 for a pitcher is like 23, 24 for a batter when they really start to hit that peak. So, yeah, maybe I reached a little bit. Okay, George is saying he likes Rodriguez at 56. I thought he was trying to shame me on my own show. Um, so again, I just believe that when you're looking at talent and trends is the big thing here, right? Because as these people start to go up, you don't know how high they're going to go. Again, a guy like Lau could be a third, fourth, fifth round pick next year. You know, um, if all things hit, and that's what you're trying to take a calculated risk at when you're getting these guys. Sorry, I'm trying to find out Rodriguez's ADP. 122. So you're talking about a 10th round pick in a traditional 12 round team or out late. So you're looking at what? SP 2, 3, 4? That's not bad. And I'll tell you, George, I'm not a Kluber fan. I was when he was younger. I just don't see it rebounding the way that people were talking about. I just don't see it. So yeah, I would take Edrod over Kluber 10 times out of 10. That's just me. The next guy I like, Malpal, you with me? I really like this young guy for the Padres, Chris Paddock. You're going to have to invest a little bit more in him. His ADP is 51.6. So you're talking about a fourth, fifth, sixth round pick, right? But I love this kid's demeanor. I love what he brings to the table. And I don't know how else to explain it other than the incident with Pete Alonso last year. We all remember it. He's pissed off that Alonso got the Rookie of the Year the first month of the year. Excuse me, Rookie of the Month, first month of the year. So I can't remember exactly how it went, but I think he threw at him and then he struck him out a couple times. But what he said afterwards was it's really kind of a I'm better. It's a competitive thing, right? And that's what you want. That's what you want out of your ace pitchers, and I think Paddock will be that. So I think Paddock at 51, again, he's one of those guys that benefits from a shortened season, right? He's one of those guys that he did want the Rookie of the Year. You're absolutely right, George, and it showed when he played Alonso, and everybody was kind of giving Alonso all kinds of props. He kind of wanted to say, "Hey, wait, don't forget about me," right? So I really like what this kid offers. He last year being his rookie year, he showed a pretty good workload. He pitched 140 innings. He pitched 140 innings, and it didn't hurt. You look at a lot of these guys. I went through a lot of these guys as I was prepping this. Guys like Dylan Cease, Brandon McKay, who, when you look at that ERA, you're like, man, I can't, I can't really buy this. Even though I believe in those guys, I believe in their talent, right? But when you're trying to cut it down to 10 players or so, those are the players that kind of lose their place at the table, to quote Corey Latimer from PCU. It's about at the table, right? I think that that's where a guy like Paddock comes in, and maybe a guy like McKay or whoever the hell the other guy was falls off. Cease falls off, right? So really like Chris Paddock. You got to spend a little bit more to get him. but I think he's going to be worth it. The next guy, how about I love saying this name. Dinelson Lamet. Easy for me to say, right? Lamet's one of those guys, and George said this earlier. Robbie Ray, the Robbie Ray comp. Lamet's a Robbie Ray comp to me. I mean, the Ks per nine's outstanding. The ERA is a little bit bloated, but he's still young. First year back from TJS. He pitched last year at 26. He'll be 27 this year. I think that's a great age for a young pitcher. His whip is going to be high, but he's one of those guys that you'll take the good with the bad. Just like with Robbie Ray, maybe a little bit more refined than Robbie Ray, just a little bit, because I'm a bigger Robbie Ray fan than most people. But at 27 years old, again, we come down to opportunity. He's guaranteed a spot in the rotation. I looked up. He was number 2 on fantasy. No, whichever site I looked at, it wasn't Fantasy Pros, but it was one of those good sites. So it'll be a 2-3 pitcher. Garrett Richards is in there. But he can handle that. He has the talent, the stuff to handle that. Again, 27 years old, really is kind of a prime for a pitcher. He's 11.7 Ks per 9 for his career. Walks needs to take a step. ERA needs to take a step. 403 last year, right? 407 last year. Need to improve that, but he's trending in the right direction as a 24-year-old rookie, 457. So about a half point off of that last year. Take another half of that. So 375 you'll deal with out of Dinelson Lamet. The innings limit is going to be something that's going to be interesting with him, right? Hey, Lenny, welcome. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you. Thanks for everything, by the way. Lenny Melnick, you want to talk about a great mentor. This guy, he works at this tirelessly. He is one of the hardest working people in the business. I really appreciate everything he does for us. Andrea, man, you're great too. I'll tell you, on the phone with me at 6 o'clock tonight, talking through this, how this works. Really appreciate you guys and all the hard work you put into this. For me, just someone who enjoys doing it, likes talking baseball, it means the world. It's a great stress relief during these times. So thank you. I love you guys both. Really appreciate y'all. So Lamet's another guy. I'll tell you, as I look him up here, he's 123 ADP. You're talking about a 10th round pick. Again, one of those guys that if he falls in line, man, that could be a steal, right? So the K's are going to be there. I really like Lamet. The next guy really I kind of cheated a little bit on this, right? Because I told you I wasn't going to talk about Javi Baez. I told you I wasn't going to talk about a whole lot of the guys that I normally talk about. I didn't mention Wilson Contreras. And Lenny talked about Contreras a couple weeks back, and I think it's important to take note of who the manager is and what he's trying to accomplish. Cubs fan, first and foremost. I really do believe that David Ross understands what's clear, the wear and tear a catcher takes throughout the course of the year. I also believe that he understands that Wilson Contreras' bat is one that he wants to keep in the lineup. The third part of that, and the most important part of that, that people don't really understand, that aren't maybe NL Central people. Victor Caratini's a good catcher, and he'd be starting for a whole lot of teams. So it really is a luxury when you think about it, that Rossi can rest him. Rossi can rest Contreras. He could play him at first base. He could play him in left field. He could play him in right field. Contreras is one of those guys. He's one of a handful of catchers that is a true middle of the bat. And I think Rossi understands that. So what I'm trying to say is, when you're looking at Wilson Contreras, understand 21 homers in 2017, 24 homers last year. But he only played 105 games last year. He only played 117 games in 2017. Ooh. Need an ice cube. I think Ross wants to see Contreras on the field for about 140 games this year in a vacuum. I think Ross sees the importance of keeping Contreras in the lineup, hitting around the middle. When I say I think, I mean I know. One, because I'm a fan. Two, because I've researched it. Contreras is going to hit 2 through 7 damn near every night he plays. Contreras is going to play more often under his former teammate, David Ross. David Ross understands how good Wilson Contreras is. 30 homers isn't out of the realm of possibility for Wilson Contreras. He's a career 267 hitter. 282 as a rookie, 276 in his second year, and 272 last year. If they're keeping his knees healthy, he can hit 280, which it sounds like they want to do. Again, Caratini's a key here because he's a very capable and talented backup catcher. Actually, he's not as athletic as Contreras is, but he's kind of the same player. He's got an advanced bat, and although he's just limited to first, whereas Contreras has a few more positions, he has a fair amount of athleticism. So it's really a good tandem between those two. I love Contreras. Even as a catcher, and him being fairly highly drafted, 109, I still think he's a value. He's a middle of the lineup bat. He's going to get more at-bats. He's going to play more games because they're going to use common sense and they're going to rest his knees. I completely agree, George. Victor Caratini starts on about half the teams in the major leagues. And I'm not even talking about Miguel Amaya. The Cubs have this uber-talented young catcher. He's 20, 21 years old. Slated to play double AAA this year, who really does fit the mold of Contreras. So another year, and you're talking about Contreras and Amaya, and Caratini's basically Rizzo's backup. In that regard, the Cubs have done it right. How about Danny Santana? I know what you're going to say. He's a late bloomer. I know what you're going to say. He's going to get squeezed out by Nick Solak. I don't buy it. ADP is 133. You're talking about an 11th round pick. The thing about Santana that I love, that I don't think people give enough credit to, he stole 20 bases as a 23-year-old rookie in 2014. He hit 319 as a rookie. He's always been pretty well thought of, but he's always kind of been on the outside looking in. That ain't happening in Texas. Last year, I fully intend for Santana to build off of his career year last year at the ripe old age of 28, where he hit 283 with 28 homers and 21 stolen bases. He had 81 runs at 81 RBI. I get it. He's 28. What about Whit Merrifield? It can happen. This guy just hasn't been afforded the opportunity. He's getting it in Texas. As a 11th, 12th round pick, if I told you you could get a player to hit 283 with 28 homers and 21 stolen bases, where would you draft him? I guarantee it's a hell of a lot higher than the 11th round. I won't even get into speculative shit. But I'm guessing he doesn't go that far. He doesn't go into the 5th round. Look at what Starling Marte's getting drafted. He could blow Starling Marte, and I love Marte. Y'all know that. He could blow Marte's numbers out of the water. He's getting drafted in the 11th, 12th, 13th round. Oh, George, I'm so glad you brought up Oscar Mercado. I love Oscar Mercado. And I'll tell you, this is one of those guys that last year was one of those fringe rookies that we were all kind of talking about, right? Traded from St. Louis to Cleveland. He gets the opportunity to play. And you know what? He delivered. Give the guy credit. Give the guy credit. 269, 15 homers, 15 stolen bases in 115 games. Take that every freaking day. But here's the thing, guys. There's about a month and a half worth of games on that ledger that he didn't get. 115 games is all he played. And 269 might not be the best average, but it ain't hurting your team average. Any format you're in. When you're talking about a guy that could give you 2 steals and 2 stolen bases, or two steals and 2 homers any week, that's a value. Because you don't have to even it out. It speaks for itself. It stands alone. Mercado, to me, is one of those guys that, again, he's just 25 years old. He reminds me of a young Kettle Marte. Maybe a little bit more evened out, but he's one of those guys that flies under the radar, and people don't understand how valuable having that true 5-tool player is. He's slated to hit second for the Indians. And I think this guy is really undervalued. Playing time is not an option, or not an issue with them. 142s is ADP. So you're talking about a 15th or so round pick. I don't know what's not to like. Lourdes Gurriel, I love Lourdes Gurriel. Don't get me wrong. Kyle Tucker, J.D. Davis, Max Kepler, Fran Reyes, guys going right around him. Again, when we talked strategy a couple weeks ago, I wanted to stress how deep the outfield position is. Because all these guys that are going after the Acunas and the guys that I took a shot at, don't get me wrong, the Acunas, the Yelich's, and the Bellingers of the world, there's a plethora of talent in these middle rounds at the outfield position. Mercado is one of them. What do you guys think? You enjoying this? You enjoying looking at my ugly mug while I'm doing this? One bonus is you guys know I'm not being a poser and telling you I'm drinking when I'm really not. You see me milking this good whiskey. But the other bonus I think is just connecting, right? Just having fun with it. Really just kind of talking through. Maybe next week I'll bring my bobbleheads out. We'll do something fun, right? But really, it adds flexibility. So the next guy I really want to talk about. I'm trying to save the best for last. But this guy's really fucking good. I really like this guy. Because I don't think he's getting the respect that he deserves. Let's talk, ladies and gentlemen, about Yoan Moncada. Moncada's one of these guys that, again, he feels like he's been around forever. But he's 24 years old. And I feel like last year, he's not a second baseman. He prefers third base. The White Sox put him at third base, and I think they saw the benefit almost immediately. I remember when Moncada came up, he was, the sure shot, the next big thing, can't miss. And then, he honestly struggled a little bit, right? But last year, it shows what being comfortable defensively can do for a player offensively. His ADP is 69. So you're looking at a 5th, 6th round pick. But when you take a stop and you look at his numbers, you really start to understand how valuable he really is. Because 315, 25 homers, sidebar, 34 doubles. 34 doubles to me says 25 homers goes up. He's growing into his role. 79 ribs and 83 runs. Fuck, he stole 10 bases. 25 years old. 25. He loves playing third base. He's secured in the middle of that lineup for the White Sox. What is not to like about Yoan Moncada? This guy was an uber everything when he came up as a 21-year-old in Boston. Everybody was on him. We've forgotten. All of a sudden, we've forgotten. It's not like he stunk. He's a developing player. His stat line last year, all those numbers are going to go up. And you're talking about getting him, what did I say, 69? 6th round? What's not to like there? Right? This guy's a tremendous value. How about, and listen, he's going to be hitting in the middle of that lineup. People talk about Eloy Jimenez, and that's great. I like Jimenez. But the thing about Jimenez is he's protecting Moncada. The thing about E5 is he's protecting Moncada. The thing about Mazzara is he's protecting Moncada. He's giving security to that young man and let him further develop his unbelievable skill set. At 69, young Moncada is a steal. Steal. Let's talk about, and we're getting down to that last couple guys. So I'm kind of playing close to the vest, right? Because honestly, some of these guys you like more than others. Hunter Dozier. Hunter Dozier last year, he's a little older, right? He'll be 28 this year. When I think of Hunter Dozier, I think of Nick Castellanos. Let me build my case. Nick Castellanos was a third baseman who didn't like it. He's just trying to stay on the field. Spent a lot of time concentrating on how to play defensively and not concentrating a whole lot on hitting. Which is, when you got a guy like Castellanos, what you want to concentrate on, right? The thing I like about Dozier is he's going to maintain that eligibility, that third base eligibility this year, but they're going to play him in right field. He's kind of one of those late bloomers. He'll be 28 this year, but he hit 279 last year with 26 homers and 84 RBIs. Take away the stress of playing every day at probably the toughest defensive position in the game at third base, and maybe that average goes up. I really like what Hunter Dozier has to offer this year. And I really do believe that the Royals view him as a centerpiece of their developing young team. Dozier is bear with me, 175 ADP. So you're looking at late pick, middle to late pick, right? I think that's a good value. And he's one of those guys where position flexibility is so important when we're talking about these final pieces, these bench players, if you will. If you got a guy who could play first, third, and left field, it's a tremendous value. I got one more player I gotta talk about, and I'm gonna break the rules a little bit. Just because I feel like he's not getting appreciated enough. People don't understand or realize Kyle Schwarber hitting the fucking leadoff hole all year last year. He hated the leadoff position. Even still, he hit 38 homers. Even still, he hit 250. Sidebar, he's not hurting your average at 250. Kyle Schwarber is finally comfortable in left field, I believe. As comfortable as he's going to get. He's not going to hit. He's going to hit in the middle of a really good Cubs lineup. This year and next year, I think you're looking at the best year of Schwarber's career. And I just got to look this up for reference because I feel like he's being criminally underdrafted. 141.6. Guy hits 45 homers and drives in 110 RBIs. You drafted him at 141? I don't think so. 14th, 15th round pick is criminally underdrafted, in my humble opinion. Again, he's another one of those players that Rossi knows intimately well. He's going to put him in positions to succeed. He's not going to expose him to dominant left-handed pitching. I love Kyle Schwarber in these next 2 years, and I think that 141 is a joke. This guy has 50 homer potential, and he should be drafted as such. Guys, this is fun. You get to see my ugly mug for an hour, but, I hope you got really good content out of this. Next week, I hope to be a little bit better at this video chat shit, but I really did enjoy this initial broadcast. I hope you guys did as well. You listen to Chappy, Chaps Fantasy Chat. I come to you Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports Network at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. Usually, I take this moment to thank everyone that's been in my chat room tonight. I don't know who's been in my chat room. I want you all to take notice that the true Mountaineer is coming out in me. No sleeves for this podcast, partly because it's 80 friggin' degrees in here. My wife doesn't want to turn on the air conditioning, partly because I've got a lot of hot air, and I've been in this small room for an hour now running it. But I want y'all to know that I have fun doing this, and I appreciate you guys supporting me. Andy, Lenny, the world's best sister that I never give credit to, Susie Chaplin. Brian Instafish Stoltz, thank you so much for joining me live. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for supporting me. George, I love you, brother. I appreciate you joining me for the entire hour. I really do. Taco, King Hap, anyone else that was on here in this, Trader Jim, anyone else that was on here for this hour, I really appreciate you guys coming in. Again, Tuesday nights at 7. Look at this pretty face every Tuesday at 7, guys. I mean, how can you go wrong? Next week, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to talk about, but it's going to be fun. So, thanks for joining. Chaps Fantasy Chat, Tuesday nights at 7. LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. Later, guys. Hi. It was light, but I expected that. It was light. There wasn't a whole lot of people in there. Yeah, Susie and Brian came. I had. I commented on there. Did you? I didn't see it. That's what I'm saying. I wasn't like in your. Lenny Melnick shared a link to a Facebook Live link to. I have to go look at it. Maybe there's more that I didn't see. I was in, and I was like, "Hey, that's a really cool feeling in your studio." I did not see that. I'm gonna go look. But it was like a Facebook Live thing. I was on Facebook. I'm like, oh. But it was frozen. Like Susie and I were both like, it's a frozen screen. Like you could see your head and everything, but you know.